Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel, Finding Yourself Again, where we focus on hope, healing, and recovery from toxic, narcissistic abuse. The ultimate goal is to establish self-love, healthy relationships, and ultimately find yourself. My name is Dontre. I'm a survivor of toxic abuse from a narcissist/borderline. If you find these videos to be helpful to you, I ask that you subscribe, like, share the content, and watch any others that might be helpful to you. I ain't gonna hold y'all up, so with that being said, let's get to today's video. Today's video is going to be about setting healthy boundaries, your guide to self-protection. The reason why I'm doing this video is because it's one of the most important things, you know what I mean? Like, especially when it comes to healing and recovery from these types of relationships and trauma and abuse and stuff like that. You need to make sure that you have clear-cut boundaries and set to protect yourself in multiple different ways. I'm about to go down, I'm about to go through the steps and hit some key points, how I normally do. So yeah, like I was saying though, you know, you probably got into an abusive relationship because you lacked boundaries. You know, you didn't really set good boundaries. I know I didn't. You know, I know that later on in the relationship, I was trying to change the person, you know, change this or change that. And it's like, nah, man, that person is already who they are. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you accepted it in the beginning and, you know, now it's spiraled. So you don't want to end up like that. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So, number one, we're actually going to get the definition on boundaries. And so what are they? They're guidelines that you establish for yourself to identify reasonable, safe, and permissible ways for other people to behave towards you, and how you will respond when somebody crosses them. That's what a boundary is. You know, they're guidelines that you set for yourself. What your boundary may be, mine may not be. I may have a different boundary or a different set of boundaries, but you may have your own, a different set as well. I'm going to recommend and encourage that you actually create a list, preferably on paper, maybe in a journal, but I also have it in my phone, you know, like that way I always have it on. I know I always have my phone on me. I don't always have my journal on me, you know, but if I have my phone, I can always go back to my notes and I have my boundaries and stuff like that. So I think it's important to start learning about what your boundaries are going to be. The purpose of this video, setting boundaries, well, I mean, no, not the purpose of this video, but the purpose of boundaries are for setting the purpose of boundaries is for setting self-respect, self-care, and protecting your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. It's not about controlling nobody, not about controlling others. So don't ever let anybody try to tell you, oh, you're controlling just because you have a boundary for your own good reason, right? We're going to go over some different types of boundaries, right? There's obviously physical, like personal space and touch. There's emotional, not taking responsibility for others' feelings, not allowing others to excessively dump negatively on you. You know, that's pretty self-explanatory. You know, you don't have to be around people that are just consistently bringing negativity towards your life. You know, you have the right to personal space and stuff like that. And then mental, protecting your thoughts and beliefs, not allowing others to constantly criticize or invalidate you. And then your time, how you spend your time, saying no to excessive demands, and materials as well, lending things like possessions and finances, right? So all of those things that I just mentioned, you should have some type of boundaries when it comes to physical, emotional, mental, time, and materials. Generally, everything in your life, you should have boundaries around it. Number two, why are healthy boundaries important, especially after toxic relationships? Well, these are some reasons why it's important. One of them is going to be preventing re-abuse. Boundaries act as a protective shield, making it less likely for toxic patterns to happen again. Another one is going to be reclaiming control. Setting boundaries helps you regain a sense of control over your life and interactions after feeling controlled or manipulated, which a lot of us are when we're in these types of relationships, right? Another one is going to be building self-respect. Enforcing boundaries communicates to yourself and to others that you value your needs and your well-being. If you have boundaries, then you care about yourself. You're not going to just do whatever. You're not going to just jump because somebody tells you to jump. You know what I mean? You have your own set boundaries. And that's why it's important to write a list down. The next one is going to be fostering healthy relationships. Healthy boundaries are essential for building relationships based on mutual respect and understanding. So one of the reasons you want to establish healthy boundaries is so you can have healthy relationships moving forward and not keep on having these toxic ones that are harming you. Another one is going to be reducing resentment. When boundaries are consistently crossed, it can lead to feelings of anger and resentment. And that makes sense, right? Because your boundaries are crossed over and over and over, and it's hurting the relationship, the dynamic. All right, so number three, identifying your boundaries. Right here, I'm going to go over these key points. So here's how you can identify what your boundaries are. You're going to want to do some self-reflection. So think about what makes you personally feel uncomfortable or resentful, taken advantage of. Pay attention to all of your human interactions. Everybody that you deal with on a day-to-day, actually think, how do they make you feel? And what is it that they're doing that makes you feel that way? Because that may end up being one of your boundaries, right? There's a reason that you feel a certain way about certain things. The next one is going to be past experiences. Reflect on past relationships and identify where boundaries were crossed and what the impact was. Look back on old relationships and see why they didn't work out, or see, what boundaries were crossed during that relationship to you, and that's how you can come up with some boundaries right there as well. The next one is going to be values. Consider what's truly important to you and try to align your boundaries with your core beliefs and values. You should be living up to them too. So you should be following your own values, right? But you should have some type of moral or value, like moral compass or values in your life. All of us have some type of values, and those values are going to be, there's going to be boundaries with that. The next one is going to be listen to your feelings. Pay attention to gut feelings or intuition that signal that a boundary has been crossed or is needed. That's an important one right there. Just listen to how you feel. Like if you feel off, if you feel hurt, if you feel angry or resentful, there's probably a reason. There was probably a boundary that was crossed, and you're going to have to stand on your consequences for that. All right, so the next one is actually communicating boundaries, like I was just getting into. Be clear and direct. Use I statements to express your needs and limits. For example, I'm not available to talk about this right now. The next is be assertive, not aggressive. Communicate your boundaries firmly and respectfully. Aggression can be counterproductive, so try to remember to be assertive and not aggressive the way that you're coming off. Be consistent. Enforce your boundaries consistently. If you waver, others may not take them seriously, or you, because you're not, one day you have this boundary, the next day it's not that strong. No, you have to be consistent with your boundaries. It's okay to say no. Remember, no is a complete sentence and needs zero explanation. This is your life, your choice. You don't need to explain anything that you need to say no about or want to say no about. You don't need to explain anything further. Anticipate resistance. Be prepared for some people to push back or react negatively to your newly set boundaries. This does not mean that your boundaries are wrong. They're yours for a reason. Whatever your boundary is in your life due to your experiences are your boundaries for a reason. Hey, I might not rock with them. I may think that they're kind of weird, but who gives a fuck what I think? It's about what you think. They're your boundaries, and they're your boundaries for a good reason, I'm sure, right? So don't ever feel like because you're gonna come across people that are having issues with your boundaries now. This motherfucker got boundaries now, and it's like, yeah, because I'm not trying to be taken advantage of and be hurt and be harmed anymore. It makes sense. Like, people get to a point where they get fed up with that, so that's okay. You have to anticipate the resistance. Be ready for people that you thought were a lot cooler, and then now that they see that you are on this type of time, they're acting different now. They're providing some resistance there. That's okay. Number 5, enforcing your boundaries have consequences. Decide in advance what you will do when someone crosses your boundaries. For example, ending the conversation, limiting contact, removing yourself, or even ending the relationship if necessary. This is very important, and this is another thing that I would write down. I would write down my boundaries, and right above that, I would write this: consequences for violating these boundaries. This is what I'm going to do in these types of situations. That way, oh, okay, so you violated this boundary, so this is what I'm going to do here. There's no questions, There's no if, ands, or buts. You already have the information right there in front of you. I think enforcing your boundaries is going to be your strongest bet towards self-protection. All right, next is going to be follow through. Consistency is key. If and once you set a consequence, be prepared to implement it. So once you have a set consequence, be ready to use it, because people are going to press you and they are going to force your hand to use that. So be ready. The next one is don't jade. Jede. Justify, argue, defend, or explain. You never need to over-explain or defend your boundaries. I've said that in one of my other videos. You could check it out. But you never need to explain nothing regarding your boundaries. They're your boundaries for a reason. You don't need to go into detail. It's your right. Remember, at the end of the day, your boundaries are your human right, and it's also your responsibility for setting and enforcing them. It's not nobody else but you. So you determine how people treat you. If you allow people to walk all over you, they will. Trust me, they will. Well, number 6, how to overcome common challenges. Feeling guilty. So going through this, there's gonna be times where you feel guilty, right? I felt like this before, when I have a new boundary set and I feel guilty because I'm implementing the consequences on somebody. But you have to remember that this is for the benefit of you, for your future, because if you do not start implementing these boundaries, you will continuously have hurtful and harmful relationships and toxic relationships, because they're not going to be reciprocated. They're not going to be fair. So if you ask me, it's a fair price. A little feeling guilty a little bit here and there when the times come up, that's a fair price. And if you think about it, the person that you're doing it to caused it, because you wouldn't be having to implement any boundaries on anybody if you didn't feel the need to, right? So don't try not to feel guilty about it. I know it's easier said than done, and I know you probably still will, because I do. But try not to feel guilty about it. You know, you could journal when you're feeling like this. You can call up a trusted friend or a loved one, and one that doesn't make you feel guilty. And you can and you know, just with this, you just have to kind of ride the wave and allow time to pass. But do not go back to allowing the person to treat you however. This is your boundary, and you need to remember that. Difficulty saying no. So here's where you want to practice comfortable ways of saying no that make you feel you feel in control of your life. You know, everybody has their own language or their own slang of talking, you know, when they're around their people, their friends and stuff. I can't tell you how to say no, but all I can tell you is to say no. If you know that it's bad for you, or it's something that you don't want to engage in, or stop doing, or whatever the case may be, causing you to need to say no or don't want to say no, you need to remember that it's okay to say no. And you can say no in the best way that suits you and makes you feel comfortable. You don't gotta be this extra cool ass motherfucker, you know, with a with a check. You ain't gotta have one of those Hawaiian shirts on and some cool glasses to say no. You know what I mean? You don't gotta have a Miris on to say no. Just, hey man, you know, I'm good right now, you know, or nah, I'm not really feeling that, or you know, or just flat out no. You know what I mean? So number 7 is gonna be the benefits of healthy relationships. I'm going to go through a list of some of the benefits of healthy relationships. I'm not really going to go into detail with them because these videos have been going a while, so I'm trying to keep them a little bit short but still have all the information. But here it goes. Here's some benefits of healthy relationships. Increased self-respect, improved relationships, reduce stress and anxiety, more time and energy for yourself, greater sense of personal power. Those are all much needed things as a human being, right? And those are the benefits when you have healthy relationships with people. Remember, be patient and offer yourself compassion and care. This is a process that takes time and can take trial and error. Trust yourself. At the end of the day, you just need to remember to trust yourself. You know, you got this. There's going to be bumps in the road. You got to remember, like, healing is not straightforward. It's not straight up and linear. There's crashes and bumps and obstacles and errors along the way, just like anything in life. You know, nothing is perfect, right? So just try to remember that you got this, and you're not alone going through this. There's a lot of other people out there going through this type of stuff. I've went through it. There's times where it gets harder for me, but at the end of the day, everything's gonna be all right as long as you stay healing and stay on your journey. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for my next video. Check out my previous ones that I already dropped that may help you. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'm putting in a lot of work on this channel, and I'm doing taking a lot of notes so I can really soak everything up in there for y'all, so y'all can really understand this and it can provide some value in your lives. But yeah, share my video so it can help reach somebody like you. Appreciate you guys. Thanks. Bye.